Welcome to Cybermania, cyber talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cybermania. With me today is the phenomenal James Packer. James, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, thank you, May. Lovely to speak to you as always.
Absolutely, my pleasure having you here. I'm so excited. This is going to be such a wonderful episode. I was really looking forward to having you on the show. And as always, I would like to start these episodes in the same way, with you telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got into this crazy world we call cybersecurity.
Absolutely, yeah. So as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm a Brit, but I don't live in the UK. I chose to vacate the premises about coming up 5 years ago. I live in Switzerland these days. I got into security as most people did. I fell into it from IT. I've been in IT for a long time, longer than I care to admit, coming up 2 decades. I just realized that part of my day job was security, whether I liked it or not. So I'll just make the jump. What I spend my time doing these days is I do cyber consulting. So I work for a big four. I've done a lot of different roles in the recent past. I've been a CISO. I have done contracting roles. I've worked for life insurance companies and wealth managers and a whole variety of different companies. And then on the side, in my spare time, because I've got nothing better to do, I decided to spend lots of time volunteering in the cyberspace. So that predominantly is being a board member with ISC2, but also I get involved with a variety of kind of community give-back exercises and cybercrime prevention and speaking to the younger generation on cyber and things like that. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's my crazy cyber life.
Absolutely crazy cyber life. I can relate. And we'll talk about volunteering a little bit later on. But I want to start. You mentioned that you have 20 years of experience in this industry, and you've done so many different roles. You've been a consultant, you've been a CISO, and you've been in different industries as well, from finance and education, professional services, etc. How do you see cybersecurity challenges and consideration differ when it comes to different industries?
I think there definitely are notable differences industry to industry. I think especially where I'm in a consulting role now, where different clients might be in different spheres, it can be as simple as, but it's not simple, the attack vectors and threats that they are susceptible to. So if they're in retail, physical. If it's manufacturing, it's production line. If it is things that are medical, then it could be data, health information. So really, industry to industry, there are a lot of differences, and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So I've done a lot of international work, and I've worked with clients and companies that are pretty much in every region in the world. And that in itself is amazingly fascinating, because the attitudes, the business attitudes, and also, standard business practices vary. What is acceptable in one region is not acceptable in another. What risk appetite is appropriate in one might not be appropriate in the other. The international variation and the sectorial variation is notable, but they all have one thing in common. None of them are ready. None of them have 100% security. Every single one of them is investing because they're not where they want to be. And we are constantly in a state of catch-up, which is why people like you and I have lots of work to do.
Yeah, I always say that working in cybersecurity means you have job security.
Yes.
They'll always need us.
There ain't no threat to AI here.
No, I wish it would have been that simple. Would have made life much easier. I completely agree. I think that culture also plays a very important role when you look at different cultures at different places around the world, the way people perceive cybersecurity, the way people perceive privacy. And I've seen that very differently. If we're talking about Switzerland is very different to the UAE or to Israel or definitely to the US. So that's also probably a big thing. I want to ask you about some common misconceptions that you see people in the industry make when it comes to security versus, you're going to like that, versus compliance. I'm just pushing you to the deep end.
I mean, I think that both of them have got a valid place. There's a purpose for each of them. I think where the conception is missed is where the real risks, where reality exists, which for me, the compliance world is real from the sense of, if you don't take it seriously and you're in a very compliance-centric industry and heavily regulated industry, there's a very real risk of you getting fined and being non-compliant. So that's very real. But I'm also referring to, where are the attackers? Where are the people that are going to try to break into your organization and break into your infrastructure? Is in that security space. So I think that it's starting to become more well known that, and recognized and appreciated, that there is a place for compliance, there's a place for regulation. But is it what is going to be shutting the front door and stopping attackers getting in? Definitely not. It is in that real world approach to security. And that is a misconception that is slowly becoming more of a concept, a recognized concept.
I completely agree. And you know what, you talked about compliance, you talked about, and before you talked a little bit about everyone not being ready. So let's talk a little bit about maturity, because we are all talking about developing the security program and maturing the security program, and it's critical. And I want to ask you, from your experience, about a few of the key stages or key steps that businesses should take to achieve that level of maturity that they aspire to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's also, as a foundation, key to recognize where your end goal is. You know, there are a number of different maturity models out there that can allow you to recognize where you are on the scale of not doing very much to you're a rock star in this space. And where do you want to be? Because if you want to be up at this end, being a rock star in the space, that's expensive, it's complicated, and it takes a long time to get there. And that as a destination may not be where you want to head. So recognize where you are comfortable ending up. And I work with clients today that focus on, okay, we know that our ambitions, we would love to be at that point, but we're just not going to get there. It's not what is right for our organization. So we're going to settle and find the happy place where we've got a comfortable risk appetite. So I think making that distinction first is important. Then getting started with it, well, I mean, the stages and phases to it is a huge step to go from 0 to 1.
True.
Go from nothing to something. That is a huge step, because you're putting something in place that never existed before. You're changing a culture and an attitude that has never existed. That's a big shift statistically. And then I think it really depends on the size of the organization, the industry that you're in, those incremental steps to get up to higher levels of maturity. And maybe that maturity is the measure that you want to be able to say that your security program is functioning as you desire it to. But it may not be maturity. There are other ways of measuring the effectiveness of your cybersecurity program, such as really rudimentary metrics like number of attacks that we get, number of phishing emails, things like that, versus how does our organization feel? What's the security culture? Do people talk about it? Do we whistleblow? Do we report incidents? Do we spot threat actors? Things like that. So I think it's also key to recognize what success really means for your organization and focus on that. I'm a big proponent of use standards and frameworks and make them work for you. You don't work for them. So customize it. There are a lot of very good standards, whether it's NIST, whether it's RMF, whether it is ISO, so many great standards out there, but customize them. Pick and choose what works for you. And that's a good way for you to be able to measure how do you stack up against other people, but also, are you where you want to be?
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I want to take something from what you've said. You talked about the culture and people. And we're in the people business, at least in our ISC2 role.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the skill sets. We know that it's not just about policies and procedures. We need people to understand cybersecurity better. We need to take our teams and take them to the next level as well. I want to ask you a little bit, how would you advise your clients or people listening to us to take their cyber skills to the next level?
I think, broadly speaking, depending on where their cyber skills are today and how they approach it, I would always think about cyber learning is different from a number of traditional learning paths. A lot of folks will struggle to be able to pick up all the concepts that you might need in a cyber role out of a book. one book or plural books, it's really difficult to pick it up out of a book. So recognize that actually cyber learning and skills development is way more than a book, is way more than an exam. It's a path, it's a journey that you have to continuously invest in and continuously walk down. And you've got to be able to provide that breadth of access to knowledge that your teams can relate to and they can ingest where they are. So what I mean by this is, sure, there is definitely space for folks to learn in a very theoretical way out of a book and doing an exam, doing a certification. Very, very, very valid learning journey there. What happens then next after that is, are you going to take a path where they're doing instead hands-on laboratory work, where they're doing, they're learning from other professionals from a networking sense, they're doing immersive labs, they're doing online training, they're doing competitions. There's so many different areas, and what I would say to somebody who is looking at the skills development within their team and how to take it to that next level is analyze where you are, analyze what you want to be, and recognize that the path between those two is not a linear line. It is a very bendy, wiggly line that takes you in a lot of different places, because that's cybersecurity. It is not straightforward, it is complex, that it's colorful, and we've got to bend and flex our learning to suit that. And also recognize that the more that we try to encourage the younger generation in, folks have different ways of learning, particularly younger generation are very online enabled. They like to ingest stuff in that more quick-paced digital format versus historically. So that's something else to consider.
Absolutely. I think that what I would add to that is give them the time to learn.
True.
Allocate that time. And that's something that I see in some cultures around the world, that they actually allocate the time. One of the surprising things that I found out in the UAE when I moved here was that every employee is mandated to take 40 hours of professional training each year. Now, it doesn't have to be specifically cybersecurity. If I want to take a course in marketing, I can take a course in marketing, that's fine. But they will allocate those 40 hours for me each year, and I think that's fantastic. Well, in cybersecurity, we learn all the time. We don't have a choice, even if we didn't want to. But I think that the fact that employers recognize that and allocate that time is crucial in this industry, because we know we have to stay up to date, and the only way to do it is to learn. So I want to ask you, you talked a little bit about the fact that organizations are not prepared. And I want to ask you, before we move on to the next part of this session today, I want to ask you sort of your number one tip that you would give organizations who wish to be better prepared for an incident, how to respond to an incident. What is like the one thing that they have to do?
You have to test it. You have to test your response in a real scenario and reflect honestly, we did that well, we did not do that well. A lot of companies do not have a very well-staffed, well-skilled, highly developed, highly trained incident response SWAT team at their disposal. So use the skills you have. Use the people you've got, even if they're in roles that are not directly cyber. Use some of the IT folks. Even use folks that are outside but would be impacted, so that they can be a decision maker, a contributor to the process. Test real scenarios and be honest with yourself. Things will never go perfectly, but it's about identifying the biggest problems and identifying ways to mitigate them. Knowing that you can't mitigate everything, you've got to focus on the most important thing. And it could be as simple as, you know what, this attack happened, the whole security team sprung in, we did everything that we could, we tried to contain it, it started to bubble out of our control, we picked up the phone, escalated up the chain to the chief executive, he was asleep. Okay, it's something super simple, but what do you do in that situation? Because you may need snappy decisions, and you've got a chief executive who is 12-hour time difference on the other side of the planet, and you're not going to get them for another 8 hours because they've just gone to bed, right? So,
or they're on a flight.
Or they're on a flight, exactly.
Yeah.
Test real world, be honest with yourself.
Love that. Love that. Well, I'm going to address sort of the elephant in the room, because you started with that, and I want to continue with that. And moving from traditional cybersecurity questions to the fact that you are such a huge advocate for giving back to community, from your volunteer work with law enforcement agencies, sit on the ISC2 board, so many other things that you do with ISC and you've done with ISC over the years, and we'll talk about that. And I want to start with a question that I personally love. Start with why. So I always start with why. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. And why? Why do you volunteer? Let's say, in full disclosure, and I'm going to point a finger at you, James is the one that told me a year and a half ago, how about you join the board of directors? I think you might be, you'll enjoy that. And I was like, yeah, that's something I always wanted, but I'm not sure I have the time.
I thought you'd be a great fit.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then how many hours a year did you say it was going to take? Don't say. It's a roller coaster. I mean, but we are having so much fun.
We are having fun, and that's a part of it, mate. To be honest, I mean, why do I volunteer so much? And definitely a question that I get asked by my wife all the time, right? Why do I volunteer so much? Because this is something I care about, and I enjoy. There are too many situations where I've observed the negative human impact of what happens when it goes wrong, and it infuriates me. I hate a scenario where innocent people are hurt and damaged and upset by some of these situations, and that passion spurs me to want to do everything I can in my power to make a difference and to positively improve cybersecurity for society, for companies, for the world. So I choose to do it because I enjoy doing it. I'm also a very sociable person, and I do enjoy connecting with new people and understanding different perspectives, and this gives me a whole bunch of that. So it's firstly, I enjoy it. Secondly, I care deeply about it, and I think lastly, because it's the right thing to do. I think that we have an obligation as practitioners, as a profession, as an industry. We have an obligation to protect society, so we best get it done.
I love that. And we can't just wait for someone else to do it, because there aren't any. No, we don't have time. No one has time. We make the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know that a big part of your career and your volunteer work is mentoring. And you've been mentoring so many different capacities. I want to ask you, what do you believe makes a great mentor in this field?
I think what makes a great mentor in this field is somebody who goes into a mentoring relationship with an open mind, without any kind of bias and preconception as to where somebody should go. I think it's imperative, and particularly a mentee that I have right now, when we have conversations with each other, and you of all people will know how difficult this is for me, Meg. It's 95% of James not talking. So, and there's a lot of it. Listen and listen. Understand them. Understand their challenges. Understand their ambitions. It's their career, not yours. And once you've spent some time figuring out, you know what, I can see this, and this. That 5% of talking at the very, very end, where you go, okay, maybe you might want to think this, and this, and try thinking about it in this way. My point being is that, again, people who are in cybersecurity, careers are extremely varied, extremely challenged, extremely stressed. And sometimes people, it can be almost like a therapy session. Sometimes people need to get some of it off their chest to really then figure out and go, okay, I think I could have done this differently, or if I want to get there, I can always almost make the path out myself. I think it's that unbiased, honest perspective where you're making the mentor-mentee relationship about them, and seeing how you can provide something that's going to help them. I say that because I've seen and I've been in mentor situations, of someone who's tried to mentor me, or I've been in that mentor relationship, and the minute that the mentee is not being listened to and their aspirations are not being recognized, it's not going to be fruitful for anyone. So.
I agree. I think it's not what a mentor has to understand. It's not about me. It's about my mentee. Oh, that's not. I can put it on a T-shirt. It's not about me. It's about my mentee. I like it.
Did we just come up with a slogan just like that?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I think we'll just have to start a mentorship program.
Sounds good.
See, I mean, we have the slogan and everything. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a lot of active listening, and not coming with our biased perspective, because we all have our biased perspective. We have our own agenda and our own background that sort of leads us into one path, and that's not necessarily the path that is right
and
to
in this
our
industry,
mentees.
one thing you'll learn very quickly is everyone is different. Very.
Oh yeah. That's what I always say to people who ask me about this industry. It's so wide. I mean, there's something for almost everyone. Almost everyone can find themselves in cybersecurity if they're so inclined. Like, I think it's the most fascinating field in the world, but again, biased.
As do I. I enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. You talked a little bit about being engaged with the younger generation, and with ISC2 we also try to do a lot of things with the center and other initiatives and go to schools and colleges. I want to ask you, what is the key message that you emphasize when you talk to younger people on how to keep them safe in the online world?
I would say ownership and accountability. I've observed too much complacency in modern day technology that, you know what, this tech company is so big and so great and so wonderful that they must take care of this. I don't need to worry about it. I can just consume the services and they do everything. And I'm talking about individuals, I'm talking about the younger generation, I'm also talking about businesses, right? That complacency is dangerous because it's your data, it's your life that may be impacted by the lack of availability of the technology, or the hacking of that technology. You've got to take ownership and accountability, man. Like, this it is not somebody else's problem, it's yours, because of the fact that you're using these services, you're choosing to use those services, you're choosing to share whatever data you're sharing with them, and it's your responsibility to understand where it goes, how it works, what's going on under the hood, be prepared to challenge organizations in the way that they're working with your data. Ownership and accountability all the way. I think that, especially again, modern technology has been designed to be so user friendly and so easy to adopt that we pick it up, start using it, blend it into our lives so quickly we don't necessarily understand what's happening. And that ownership and accountability is about going, you know what, I love it, I like that technology, but just take a break, just stop 30 seconds. Make sure you understand this service, make sure you understand what it's doing, how it works, and once you've informed yourself, great, go crazy, make informed decisions from that point onwards.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's spot on, because so many people say, oh, what will happen if my data gets leaked? Yeah. And that drives me insane. It's, you know what, if you don't care about your privacy, fine, but don't tell me nothing will happen. You can say, I choose to take this risk. It's absolutely fine. You can take whatever risks you want. Exactly. Every person is different. Some people bungee jump. I wouldn't, but some people do.
On my bucket list. I'm not there yet.
I know. I'm terrified of heights, so I'm looking at someone doing a bungee jump, and I'm like, hell to the no. But on other things, I might take risks that other people will say, wow, that's crazy. So it's fine, but you have to make informed decisions. And I want to talk a little bit to take that into the cybercrime prevention initiatives that you've been involved in.
Yes.
And if you can share a little bit of the insights from those initiatives, how do you see the role of us as security professionals being in contact with law enforcement agencies to help better understand and better prevent those cybercrimes?
I think it's the reason I do this is because I think there's so much value for every person involved. There's 3 different parties involved in this, and that is the cyber industry, the law enforcement agencies, and the individuals, right? Everyone's got something to gain from this. And let's look at it from the law enforcement perspective. Cybersecurity professionals tend to work in the private sector, mostly because it pays better.
True.
And that is
true.
Very factually correct. Therefore, law enforcement and public sector is generally under-resourced when it comes to cyber skills. Okay? So they're getting access to cyber skills for free. They're gaining from it, and they're able to leverage that and use it for the betterment of society, which is also altruistically a great thing to do. From a cybersecurity professional's perspective, you're gaining experience in working with law enforcement, which is also a very appealing skill and experience to have, because there may be situations in your professional role later down the line where you have to do that, and if you've already got that experience from having worked with them, or even you've got a great contact in it, that is to the advantage. Now you turn to the individual, and this is where it gets really interesting. The really interesting bit here is that some of the situations, and certainly the cybercrime prevention workshops that I've been in, the young offenders don't necessarily fully understand what they're doing. They're following a YouTube video, they're following something on Reddit, they're just click away they go, and not really fully understanding it. But they're also smart enough to know how to follow it and to be able to execute these kind of things. They've got a level of technical skills, right? A lot of them, when they get caught, they're not, they're generally remorseful, they generally understand the gravity of the situation, and when they see an opportunity in front of them that says, guys, or gals, rather than this negative path, how about we can redirect you can actually make a career out of this, and it's actually quite a cool career, and that's actually it's very much a more appealing path than the alternative. Everyone's a winner. Everyone's a winner in that situation. So I think there's a lot to gain, and my experience has been very positive, and I think that cybersecurity practitioners out there, I encourage, do as much of this as possible and try to build those connections in that intersection with law enforcement, because it's a great initiative, and it's an enjoyable experience as well.
Fantastic! I absolutely love that, especially redirecting young people in this industry. I think that one of the things that anyone who listens to you in any capacity can see that your passion to drive this industry forward, it's so evident. I mean, it's like you are so passionate, and I absolutely love that. And I want to ask you a little bit about key areas where you think or you believe that cybersecurity industry really needs to focus in the upcoming years to make significant progress, to really move the needle.
I think we have to recognize one simple truth, which is that if you rewind and review the path that technology took from its inception to today, it went from a place of being unknown, unheard of, and the IT department buried in the basement telling you to turn it off and on again, right, to individuals who are at the forefront of the business, driving the business, making the business successful, and building technology that can change the world. That's tech. The same thing is going to happen with cybersecurity. The same thing is coming in that sphere, because it is lagging behind. It is this thing that is the security team sitting in this dark corner over there with hoods and scripts and etc. But now it's becoming more and more at the forefront of the business, and it's becoming an enabler. It's becoming an opportunity, and quite frankly, it's becoming something that there is no person on the planet that can be complacent in recognizing that they need to play a part in at least their own security, if not that of others. So I think that in the same way that tech has become so entwined in the modern world, cyber is getting there, and it's coming, and it's what we need to do. My prediction, not only that that's going to happen, but the prediction of how are we going to contribute and how are we going to improve this, how are we going to make it better, is to kind of the last point on the cybercrime prevention. We need to get the right knowledge out there into society. This is not just our fun game for cybersecurity people to make us feel special. No, this has got to be shared for the betterment of the entire society worldwide. So we've got to get this out there, and there are going to be a lot more people like me and a lot more people like you that do the kind of work that we do to try and make society better in a cyber context.
I love that. Yeah, true. I think that we're getting there. I think that one of the things that I see is more understanding of the business side and how we can actually improve the business side and not just tick boxes. Yep. Going back to the question on compliance. So yeah, I completely agree. Well, we have to talk about ISC2. You were dreading this. I know. Well, you've been a volunteer with ISC2 for over a decade, I think.
A long time.
Yeah, a very long time. Let's start with a question that I really like. What is the most rewarding experience you had during your volunteer work with ISC2?
Oh, that's easy. That is
Easy?
so easy. That is
Oh, okay.
so easy. The first ever London chapter meeting.
Ooh.
The first ever.
Yeah, lots.
When I started my volunteering journey, I was like, I heard about these chapters. They sound great. It sounds like lots of people coming together and talking about their challenges and helping each other to solve them. That sounds great, and I would love to take part. Where's my nearest chapter? Where's the chapter in London? There isn't one.
Oh, there is one.
What? This is London. That's crazy. Let's
Yeah.
do something about that. And it took time to find people, to find members, people who wanted to participate, to find venues, etc. The first meeting, absolute smash hit. Absolute smash. It wasn't huge. It wasn't hundreds of people. It was, I think, maybe about 30, 35 people, something like that. But there was beers and pizzas and laughter and people coming together. And I felt like I helped to enable that. I helped to build those connections, and people took something away from that was meaningful to them in their lives and in their profession. And so for me, it was just an amazing, amazing experience to be able to help make that happen. And then, of course, naturally, everything that snowballed from there afterwards in building a chapter that is now enormous. But
Yeah, how many members do they have now?
I think they're up to nearly like 3,000 followers on LinkedIn or something like that. So I think it's significant. It's really significant.
Huge.
But I mean, hey, I stepped out many, many years ago. Kudos to Liz and the team. They do a phenomenal job. And they've done way more than I did in the early days. But that for me is the fondest memory is that first get it going and kind of building that nest egg and that sense of satisfaction.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I will say that you can also take pride in the Israeli chapter because I don't know how I would have started the Israeli chapter without your mentorship. So
and what a chapter it is today.
It is, and it's so much better since I left, I have to say. The team that replaced me, I mean, I love them to bits, and they're doing such a starting a new chapter or starting a new initiative, it takes time to build and grow, and we had momentum and it was great. But when a new team came along and they were fresh and they already had that foundation, that very strong foundation, we had some like 300 members, I think, when I left. They didn't have to struggle with finding sponsors and finding venues. They already had that, so they could really take it to the next level, and it's absolutely inspiring to see what they've done with it. So I'm very proud of that. That it's so.
You should be.
It's
You should be.
yeah. I'm very proud of them. They're doing a phenomenal job, and they've all been my students. All the leaders.
Amazing.
I think
Amazing.
maybe one maybe wasn't, but all the rest of them were. So it's
good
a lot
teacher
of fun. Or a bad one that makes them volunteer their time. Terrible. So let's talk a little bit about the board of directors. You've been on the board now, you're coming up to your third year, so you're up for re-election in full disclosure, and re-election is now until when?
2nd of July.
Oh, so we have time. So we have 2 weeks. We'll post this soon, so people, if they're looking who to elect for the board of directors, you can listen to James and you can listen. And by the way, you also had conversations with the rest of the candidates on the slates, and that's fantastic. And it's recorded, and everyone can see it. And
go on my LinkedIn, you'll see all the videos. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that, because I think that people with the right motivation, we're all in this for the same reason. We want to grow the association. We want to serve the industry. So
Exactly.
I love that.
This is not a competition. This is not a beauty contest. This is a lot of people who do great work and volunteer their time and want to make things better. And kudos to every single one of them, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you about the board of directors. When you first joined 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, did something surprise you about how the board of what is the ISC2 Board of Directors?
I think maybe at the time, maybe one thing that surprised me, or not necessarily surprised me, but it was kind of not exactly as I would have wanted it to be, was that, you know, when I joined the board, I was assigned a mentor to help me to onboard and get up to speed and you know, learn the ropes. And it was quite common at that point that directors in the very start were encouraged, you know, not necessarily start slowly, but like don't take on too much, because there's a lot of learning and a lot of broad stuff to do here. And so, like, pick the things that you're interested in, invest the time that you can invest, don't overcommit, which, I get that in terms of the, don't overcommit, don't overpromise and underdeliver. I'm a big proponent of that. But that's not me. Sorry, that's not me. Like when I commit myself to something, I'm not even 100%. I'm like 150%. So I'm like, give me everything. And so that was maybe as much as a shock for the board as it was for me. That they're like, oh, hi, new board member. I'm like, right, what's going on here? What's going on there? What's going on? And I'm like, I'm like, make myself busy getting everything as quickly as possible because I'm here to achieve things and to help. And I'm not going to do that by sitting, not contributing in every single area I can possibly find. So yeah, it would probably be that. That's get involved quick.
And I think that was actually one of the advices that you gave me when I joined the board, and I sort of done the same. Yeah. And I completely agree.
How have you found it? Has it proved worthwhile?
Absolutely.
Consuming all the time, of course.
Consuming all of my time. But I have to say, I'm enjoying myself so much. I'm learning so much. There are things that we do as a board that are so big.
Yep.
And things that you wouldn't necessarily do in your cybersecurity role, or even I do other board member roles, but not to such a huge organization. And I don't think people understand how big ISC2 really is today. We have, do you remember the numbers? We have 600-something thousand members?
650,000 members, candidates, associates. Yes, and there's a distinction between the members and associates, which are those who have passed the exams, and our voting members, which is somewhere around 190, 200,000, I think, something like that.
No, more. That's only CSSP. Yeah, I think it's about
so maybe my numbers are a little bit out of date, but yeah, 650 in total. It's a big number.
It's huge.
But it's a 35-year-old association, and it's been a busy few years for them as well.
Yes, with the CC and everything. Yeah, we're growing, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun work. So it is. One of your previous roles, you've been in education, and I think that correlates nicely to what we do as an association. Yep. I want to ask you a little bit about the challenges that you identify for the training and certification world in cybersecurity, because we talked about education, we talked about career paths. What do you identify as challenges now?
So I would say one of the learnings that I've taken from my previous work in the education space that I still think we've got some more work to do for ISC2 is the prior organisation was big on international learning from a language perspective and a cultural perspective, and that is something that we need to take on and take to the next level in ISC2. So it's one of the things I've mentioned in some of the discussions I've had with my other board of director candidates, is that to me translation is part of the job. And it's a big part of the job, but it's part of the job, translating exams, translating CBKs, etc. But there's a next level to that, which is regionalization, localization, regional sensitivity, recognizing that this acronym is a different acronym in this, but actually that acronym doesn't even exist here because it's actually something else. Critical national infrastructure versus critical infrastructure versus, they mean different things, but also in terms of some of the principles and the ethos around concepts, privacy, security, what it means to be a national infrastructure provider. Those type of examples, it differs around the world, and we absolutely should be focusing on the fact that we want to drive international harmonization and standardization of cybersecurity. Yes, very much so. But it would be advantageous to our membership to look at some of those regional differences and try to build that in, because it also helps learners to learn when they're thinking about things in concepts and considerations that they are culturally relevant to the individual. It helps them to learn faster as well.
Absolutely. I think cultural difference is so big, and the legal sphere, the compliance sphere is so different in different parts of the world. I completely agree with you. We're getting towards the end of this show, but before we end this, we talked about volunteering. I started with why, and before I conclude this topic, I want to ask you, how do you balance your professional commitments, your passion for volunteering, and your personal life?
It's challenging. It's very challenging. I mean, I'll be honest. I would love to say that it's easy and I just follow this calendar and I get up at 5 a.m. and I drink this and I work out there and no, I'm sorry. I'm going to be real. It is difficult. It is really difficult. And it's something that I constantly have to find myself reassessing my priorities and where I should be investing my time and what is good investment of my time. It's something that I'm constantly having to challenge myself on. And in many ways, I'm not sure that I do get it perfectly right. I do end up doing phone calls far too late into the night, many nights in a row, and I don't get as much sleep as a result. And it is a difficult challenge. But also, I recognize that I'm not the only one around the world that's got this kind of challenge, right? There are many people who have sleepless nights because of some of the situations they experience in their professional world. Yeah. They're in companies that are constantly getting attacked. They're constantly getting phone calls in the middle of the night trying to deal with emergency situations. I want to be there with them, to be honest. It's if I can help contribute, it's in my power to do so, then I'm happy to continuously challenge myself and try to do my best to balance my priorities and not be perfect at it, but at least I'm spending it on the things that matter.
Well, you're a passionate person. There's no denying, for sure. Lastly, before we go on to the pop quiz, which is my favorite part, what piece of advice would you offer aspiring cybersecurity professionals who really want to make a positive impact in this industry?
Okay. Ooh. Well, if you're aspiring, go and take the certified in cybersecurity. That would be point number one, because we've got a chicken and egg. You can't get into a job unless you've got experience. You can't get experience unless you've got it. It's like you're in a circle. Certified in cyber breaks the cycle. Get the certification, get into the get the role. So go and do the certified in cybersecurity, and then in terms of you're on your way, you're getting your foot in the door. I mean, you've just got to be curious and broad as to how you're tackling challenges. Be open-minded of the fact that even a very foundational level of knowledge you might have in cyber is in many ways far more than many people around the world have. And keeping that humility, that open-mindedness, and the curiousness to understand what is the real-world link to whatever this cyber challenge is that I'm trying to solve, and what would the impact be to customers, to people, to companies, to etc. I think that's also crucial. That attitude, the attitude and mindset of a cybersecurity professional, is something that's difficult to teach. You can teach cyber knowledge, can't teach that kind of mindset.
True. James, that was fantastic. And now towards the end of this show, we have a very short pop quiz. Short questions, short answers, whatever comes to mind, no right or wrong answers.
Sounds good. Fire.
Yeah, so let's start with, if you hadn't chosen a career in cybersecurity, what would you be doing today?
Marine biology.
Marine biology.
That was what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I have since gained a scuba diving instructorship. Secretly now is my retirement plan is to go and do a scuba diving instructor, but if I hadn't done this industry, I would have invested in biology and actually done marine biology and combined the two things.
Nice. Love that. Is there a specific genre or song that really gets you in that cyber zone?
In the cyber zone?
In the cyber zone, yeah.
Yeah, I would say Roller Coaster by Lunatic Calm. It's from the Matrix soundtrack, and when I hear it, every single time I'm like, man, I feel like I want to be a hacker right now.
For me, it's Kill Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the Kill Bill soundtrack. It's usually like when I need to focus, that's what I'll put on.
Love it.
Yeah, it's very weird. What's the most unexpected place your cybersecurity journey took you to till now?
Oh, wow. That's a very good question. Alphaville Village.
Where is that?
Just outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil.
I didn't get to go to Brazil.
Yep.
I
went over and spent 4 days on site with undisclosed individuals dealing with an undisclosed serious situation.
Cool.
Yes.
Did you manage to see Brazil?
A little bit, but we were kind of locked in rooms dealing with things for most of the time. But I did get to go out and enjoy a little bit of caipirinhas and maybe not as much of the Brazilian dancing and that side of things. But yeah, it was fun.
That is cool. That is cool. If you could have dinner with any cybersecurity pioneer, past or present, who would that be?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I would go with James R. Wade, which, for those people that are not familiar with him, there is ISC2 does an award, the James R. Wade Service Award, which is for dedicated volunteers and people that spend enormous amounts of time giving back. And in case you didn't notice, I like doing that. So to connect with somebody who was so internationally renowned for that altruistic work, I'd love to have dinner with them.
Beautiful, beautiful. And last but not least, one of my favorite questions. What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Not taking the degree was a smart choice. You don't need it. You don't need it. I made a conscious choice not to do it, and I would say, don't change your mind, because I was like really close. Should I do the degree? Should I not? And it was like, I'm not gonna do it. It was like I would have been like pushing me, like, you don't need it. Don't need it. Didn't do the degree. Now I'm working on my MBA later in life. Back then, it was very much a common thing. When you're in your 17, 18-year-olds, it's time to go to university, go and do a degree. You need that to go into the big bad world. Nope, not for me. Got started and work my way up. And my piece of advice would be, stick with that, buddy, because you don't need that degree. Get it later in life.
James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. It was so inspiring and fun. And good luck with the election.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you and everyone else here next time on Cybermania.